comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government.
We are back. Bronx Roots. Michael Preminger, David Hubler. I'm Ralph Tycho, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And it's Sunday. We're here chatting. I'll start with you, Michael. Was machst du?
Well, I'm getting ready for the Tony Awards tonight.
Okay.
I think Carousel is up for an award. I think. And,
I remember that from when I was a kid. They came out with a remake of that. Am I correct?
Yeah. So I've been practicing the song, the soliloquy.
Yes.
My boy
favorites.
Bill. Yeah.
I will see
so
that
I've
he's
been
named after me. I will. My boy Bill will be strong and grow like a tree he'll grow with his head held high and his feet planted firm on the ground, and you won't see nobody dare to toss or boss him around. Yeah, I know a little bit about it.
Hey!
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I've been rehearsing all weekend, and now I feel like you just took over.
No. I'll just be your understudy.
Oh, okay. Because then he says, but what if he is a she? My little girl, pink and white as peaches and
cream. He addressed that, and in the age we live in, it's okay. Who the heck cares? I won't use the word indiscriminately, but who really cares nowadays? And isn't that a sign of progress from when we grew up in the 50s? Isn't that?
Who cares about what? What are you talking about?
Whether it's a boy or girl.
Yeah,
boy. It's a boy.
Yeah, Bill, if he wants to be a boy, if he or she doesn't want to be what they were born into, then I think
this morning on the show CBS this morning, they had a piece about the Broadway music. About Rodgers and Hammerstein. They write some great music. Oh my!
Oh yes,
they did. But it's interesting how their shows have become so antiquated.
Well, could be. I don't know. But then again, Carousel is back on Broadway now.
Yes, and we saw a revival of it here at Arena Stage. I guess about 2 years ago or so, which was very well done. But I mean, so many of those. Well, recently we saw a revival of the Pajama Game at Arena Stage, and that is so 1950s. I mean, he pursues the girl. She doesn't want to marry him. She does want to marry him, but she doesn't. And so much of it was a sort of not vituperative sexism, but it was all in there. And the worst of all, of course, I think, was Rodgers and Hammerstein's South Pacific, which everybody loves. But when you think about the premise of the show, that she won't marry him because he's got 2 Asian children, I mean, it's like ludicrous.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. But
there's nothing like a dame and a broad and all this, the words and the phraseology.
Oh, sure, yeah. But that was, they were.
In South Pacific, weren't they making that point? Because also there's the romance between one of the sailors and an Asian girl, and I forgot. And you got to be. They say you got to be taught to hate.
Right. Oh, I'm not saying that they were racial couple,
no.
Oscar and Richard. But
again, they were a sign of their times too.
Exactly, and of course they were taking it from the book, Tales of the South Pacific. So
right.
that was another thing. Yeah. You know,
Ralph, the other episode on one of the other segments this morning was just what you were talking about, Stanley. Was Jim Parsons from The Big Bang Theory?
Mm-hmm.
Is producing a movie that he's starring in. He and his wife, who is a girl, though in life his wife is a guy, but it's true. I guess he's the wife, because he talks about his husband. It's very confusing. But anyway, in the movie, they have a child, a boy, who is at the age of 4 is already dressing like a girl, and so they don't know what school to enroll him in. So it's exactly what you're talking about with this when you say I guess it starts that early.
Well, the church will knock that shit out of him.
You know, 20 years from now, a movie like this will be looked upon as you know. I mean,
exactly.
It doesn't sound like a movie I plan to see. By the way, I mean it doesn't sound like you know.
I wonder.
It's no Citizen
You guys
Kane.
mentioned those musicals are being trite, but I heard a commercial with a song from The Sound of Music, rather.
Yes.
I can't remember the song, but it is so catchy, and it instantaneously draws you to the television, and it's one of the songs from Sound of Music, and they are not trite. They were delightful. Those Broadway shows. They
were, no question.
Yeah, they were. I think
Music Man was another one that was terrific, and it was Rodgers and Hart for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Hammerstein left or died.
No, I think it was the other way around. Hart died. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Then I'm mistaken. But
you may not know this, Ralph, but Richard Rodgers, Mike and I we share a high school alumni.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You're Clintonites.
Yes, so was Richard Rodgers.
Wow.
I think he wrote the Clinton Fight.
You guys have not name dropped, but talked about a whole bunch of folks that came from Clinton.
Burt Lancaster. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. You know, I mean, Mike and I are not the only two.
Right. But you're up there.
We're up there.
Way.
Yes.
Oh, that's very funny. We haven't even mentioned all the well-known criminals. We haven't even mentioned those guys.
Well, those
teachers or the hierarchy in whatever church, synagogue, or mosque you live.
We didn't have any mosques in the Bronx in those days.
No.
We had a Moskowitz, though.
Yeah, a lot of Moskowitz.
So Roy Moskowitz lived on the first floor, actually.
That's right. Yes, I do remember him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You have good memories.
His father was a cop. I just thought I'd mention that.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Yes.
You didn't find too many Jewish cops in New York.
Another Bronxite made
No, you're right. That's right. He's a Jewish cop.
Yeah, my brother-in-law was a Jewish cop, but he was a rare one too. Didn't have too many.
And I think last week we talked of a book we talked of books by Goldman, and Goldman wrote a book about a Jewish cop. I think it was called No Way to Treat a Lady. And it depicts a Jewish guy being a cop. Not many were.
No.
Am I correct?
Yes, or in the fire department too. In the fire, they
probably especially in the fire department.
They were closed professions. Even in New York,
right.
they had their unions, and they kept they were staffed by minorities. The police today still are predominantly of Irish descent, but they kept Jews.
David, would you recall? Do you recall any stories that your brother-in-law told you about being a Jew in that environment that might be interesting?
No, as a matter of fact, my brother-in-law has kept a lot of that to himself over the years, and he doesn't talk about that. Yeah, I mean, even though he was stationed in Fort Apache, the Bronx, which supposedly was the toughest. Yeah. But he, like so many other officers, developed a sort of jaundiced view of humanity, because they only saw the worst parts for the most part, and so this is this, and then that's so bad, and so we don't normally talk about that stuff. But even if I've tried to, in fact, I once tried to get him on this show, and he said, "Oh no, I'm not good at that sort of thing," and he probably isn't. So, although he's a wealth of information,
if you could get him going,
I know. But he's a wealth of information about the Bronx. You want to know anything about the Bronx? He studied it. He knows it. He's got photographs to show you about it. He lives in Las Vegas, but his heart's in the Bronx.
Well, it's funny. Wherever we live, our hearts are where we grow up.
When you're talking about No Way to Treat a Lady, do you remember that movie?
Yes, I do.
It sounds familiar, but I don't recall it.
It was Rod Steiger.
Oh.
And he played a serial killer who would commit his crimes in different disguises. He was an old lady. He was something else. And, of course, I just looked it up. I remember. But I guess George Segal must have been, is obviously the Jewish cop Stanley was referring to.
Yes.
It says I didn't know
Ralph.
he was Jew. I don't remember him being Jewish, but obviously.
Yeah.
So what's a Jewish cop like? Hands up. Or, well, you don't have to. But you can put down if you want. But put one hand up. That's all right.
You want to do it later?
Sandwich. I'll give you a sandwich.
Have something to wash it down with.
Yeah, right. Oh, that was a great movie. A matter of fact, a quick anecdote. I remember the girl that I took to see that movie, and in front of me was this guy who kept getting up and walking up the aisle and coming back and getting up and walking back. He must have done this 10 times. And it was Dustin Hoffman.
Really?
And The Graduate had come out maybe not too much before then, but I remember wanting to say, sit down. Then I went, oh, Dustin Hoffman, how you doing? I don't know why.
Where was this? Where was this?
It was in a movie theater in Manhattan.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, and he kept still. And I was with Courtney, in case you're interested. But I thought she was my girlfriend, but she was lying. But that's a whole other sad story. Start to cry right now.
Hey, listen, I'm tearing up for you because we all have our sad stories.
Yeah.
Except you. You haven't really had much tumult in your life, David.
Oh, I've got plenty. I just don't talk about it. Mm-hmm.
But as far as women, when did you meet Becky? Were you still in school?
No, actually, it's sort of a cute story. I was in graduate school up in New Hampshire, and I had come down to the city for a long weekend or so. And it was sort of the end of the winter, and I was doing my best Bob Dylan impression by wearing a turtleneck and letting my hair grow a little long and kind of scruffy. And a friend invited me to this house party from City College. Now, City College did not allow fraternities, but they had house parties, which meant that a group of guys could get together and they could form a house party, and they could actually rent, So this was an apartment that they rented down around 14th Street over near Union Square. And so I went, and the party was probably a little too raucous before I got there, because as we knocked on the door and they opened it, there was a couple of cops standing right behind me and another guy. So this attracted Becky's attention because she was there on a date, and she thought she didn't like the date, as she's told me numerous times, and she said, this guy looks interesting, with his police escort. His police escort. So we struck up a conversation, and I asked her out. I said, I'm going back to school, but when I come back, can we go out? She said, oh, okay. I said, can I have your phone number? She said, just call the school. And so a couple of weeks later, when I called the school, they said, sorry, pal, if she wanted to see you again, she would have given you her phone number, because she lived in a dorm. She lived in a dorm down there.
Which school? What school?
Beth Israel School of Nursing. It was down on.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's evolved into. I forget what the name of it is now. It's been taken over by another hospital or something. I forget all the different changes it made. So I sort of began to poke around, and I finally found the number for her floor in that dorm, and I did call her. And this is a true story too. It's all true. I have not made up one word. So we went out, and because I had been at NYU down in the Village, I knew a bit about the Village. So we went to a movie in the Village, just off 6th Avenue there. And I forget the name of the theater, but I'll never forget the name of the movie.
The Waverly?
It might have been the Waverly. Yeah, it might have been on one of the side streets there. It was like just off. No, not that far south. It was just off 6th Avenue and, say, West 4th, which is where the subway station is.
So, but anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, the movie was called A Stranger Knocks. And I think it was a Swedish movie, which should have tipped me off right away that this was not going to be a Walt Disney production. So we went in to see this movie, and it's about a war widow, whose husband has been killed by the Nazis. And so far it's fine. But then the stranger knocks, and one thing leads to another, and there's this very, very steamy scene on the couch. And Becky told me later, she said, I was telling myself, if he dares to put his arm around me, I'm going to leave right now.
So kidding.
Yeah, well, it was that innocent era of the 60s. So, fortunately, I didn't put my arm around her. And it was really, for its day, it was an extremely lurid sex scene. And of course, while they're engaging in their activities, she discovers the scar, or I think a tattoo, that she knew her husband's killer had. So she realizes instantaneously that she's getting stopped, or whatever the word is in Swedish, by her husband's killer. which if I can recall correctly, didn't stop her from enjoying it, but afterwards she had lots of regrets.
Well, she could have been stooped by anybody.
I'm looking up. It has The Stranger Knocks in 1963.
Right, that would have been it.
And with directed by Johan Jacobsen. I can't even pronounce. So it was a foreign film, yes?
Yeah, I said it was Swedish. Okay.
You said.
Did this have subtitles?
I think it did, if I recall. Yeah.
Oh, so what a date, a Swedish.
Yeah, I mean, innocent me taking the Swedish.
So luckily you weren't aggressive.
Right, exactly.
Aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
In 18 years, I never put my arm around Michelle because she said, "Don't. What are you doing?" I said, "I'm sorry. I thought we were married." You see. So that's how you met. That's great.
Yeah,
story.
yeah, very interesting. Yeah, and
she was a nurse. Huh?
Yes, she was a nurse in the OR when we first moved down here. She worked over at Sibley Hospital. No, I'm sorry, Hospital for Women, Columbia Hospital for Women, which no longer exists. And she worked in the OR down there till we went over to England about less than a year later. So she didn't have much of a career in nursing.
Nurses are good human beings for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
I'm serious about that. They make good mates.
Mm-hmm.
They're nurturing and caring and just in
and she had a wonderful group of friends there in the nursing school, and she did it as a lark. I mean, she wanted to get out of the house in Queens where she was living with her mother and brother, and somebody had given her an application for Beth Israel, so she filled it out and was accepted. So that's what propelled her into her Florence Nightingale career, which is not very long.
Good. And you had kids together?
I love the image.
Yeah. 2 boys. Mm-hmm.
I love the image of you standing in the doorway with 2 cops behind.
Yeah, that's right. And dressed in my turtleneck and my hair. I couldn't have planned it better if I tried.
Yeah, like you were the undercover cop or something.
You're right. Yeah, or they were about to arrest me.
What happened to her date?
We don't know.
Probably very.
He's still looking for her. I think maybe he's still looking for her. Becky.
So what do you guys I'm just curious. What do you have planned for the rest of the day? Both of you guys. Start with you, Michael.
Well, my big decision today is, do I get back into bed from the right side or the left side of the bed?
Okay.
I think this one other time, one of these Sundays when we were talking, I have no plans, is what it is, and I wish I did. I hate it. I think it was
okay. Well,
Sundays are not, because I'm not busy during the week, and so if my grandson's not playing ball or something, I'm pretty free. Why is there something you have that I could do?
No, well, long term, why don't you come up and visit and meet my sister-in-law?
Okay.
I'm serious. She'd like you, you'd like her. That's another story. Here's people to look for. You look for nurses as women. You look for nannies. People who are
nannies.
Nannies, and she just happens to be a nanny. My sister-in-law.
Oh, is she? Oh.
Is that what we call making a shidduch?
I don't remember it pronounced as shidduch.
Shidduch. Okay, all right. My
So,
pronunciation was slightly off, but I think I
hey,
have the
listen,
right word.
how much Yiddish have we all forgotten? And every day I curse the world. I don't remember Yiddish like I used to remember Yiddish.
I still have that idea for that story about the guy who, as he gets older, begins to speak Yiddish without ever having no language. I
think I've told you guys that when I was a kid, I used to think that having an accent was a middle-aged thing, and that one day you wake up and you go, something's wrong. I can't seem to speak like I used to speak. But I thought that was a middle-aged thing. I realize, of course.
Well, yeah, but it's because that's what we were exposed to growing up,
right?
For the most part.
How many people,
whether it was in the Bronx or Queens or wherever,
spoke King's English? Very few. Very few people today.
I must say my grandfather and grandmother, my mother's parents, they spoke without any accent at all. Because my grandmother was born in Long Island City, and although my grandfather was born in, we believe, Poland, came to the States as a young boy, and he too had no accent. But many of the people around us in the apartment buildings,
right?
They many of them had an accent, right, Mike?
And we've talked about this. That accent is quickly fading out. That
absolutely.
Very.
It is.
That way, and you have the pleasure of visiting the really elderly folk who some of them have accents, I'll bet.
Yes, but surprisingly, very few at the Jewish home I go to. Very few. And some of them, if they did know Yiddish, don't remember. So there are some like who came from like Russia and stuff. They seem to speak Yiddish more than the ones who were born here, or they still speak the language of the country which they were born. There's one lady, I think she's from Poland. She has a slight accent, but she taught herself. She came here after the war and didn't speak a word of English, and speaks beautifully. I wish there were more who spoke Yiddish. A lot of them have passed. That's the thing. Working at a place like this, you never know when you get there who's still going to be there.
Yeah.
But I was surprised. Not that many. Oh, one lady the other day. This is off the subject. I got there and she kind of gently pulls me aside and says, "I want to buy you lunch. I want to buy you Chinese food for lunch," which it's not kosher, so we had to eat it in a room that was like down the hall away from everybody. But that was very sweet.
Yeah. Was it good?
Yeah, very sweet. Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very nice that they make provisions for folks who either have guests or what have you. Eat non-kosher
well, of course.
food.
Yeah, this is the first time that I experienced that. Sometimes what they'll do, I don't know how often, they'll take a handful of the residents who are still well enough to leave the premises, though still in wheelchairs or walkers, and they'll take them to a restaurant, which may not be kosher, but they'll get them out of the building.
Right.
So many of them, this is too depressing to talk about. So many of them, many of them still seem okay mentally, but they just, like this woman who bought me the food, she can't get out of her chair. She's so big. She can't walk.
Right.
So, I know this is a far away from what you asked about. Do they speak Yiddish? But not that many.
That's sad.
It's surprising. and maybe a lot more, but most of them are out of it. They're just sitting there. They can't talk anymore, or they once in a while they'll say a word. So there could be a lot more who speak Yiddish, but they don't talk.
Right.
So
why should I speak? I got nothing to say.
You're talking about that. Yeah, why should I talk? Somebody showed me a cartoon yesterday, and it's not about Yiddish, but you get to a certain age, and every day you wake up and something else hurts. Do you guys go through that at all?
Oh, yeah.
I'm knocking on wood. Not this morning.
Good for you.
Tomorrow
Don't knock
morning.
on wood now. You'll hurt yourself.
Turns out it's for Micah.
You hurt your hand. Good for you.
All right.
I had mentioned earlier, or last week I think it was, a wonderful book called Growing Up Bronx by Gerald Rosen, who also happened to go to Clinton, by the way. And there's a wonderful passage that sort of typifies what it was like. He was born in 1939. Unfortunately, he died about a year or so ago. And I had spoken to him once or twice on the phone because he'd written several other books. But this one in particular is, for anyone who has lived in the Bronx, or had grandparents in the Bronx, this book is so true. I just have to read one short passage because this is our mindset as we grew up. We didn't go north on Nelson Avenue very often because of a moron named Willie Hammerhead Morgan. Willie was called Hammerhead because his head seemed unnaturally foreshortened at the top. He had virtually no forehead, and his widely said dead eyes gave him the cruel, implacable aspect of a hammerhead shark. Only his teeth seemed alive. Hammerhead was 2 years older than I, but I was a grade behind him in school. He was one of the few Catholics whose parents didn't send their kids to the Sacred Heart School. He was a rough member, and we all tried to steer clear of him. There was no way, however, to avoid running into him once in a while at the movies. 15 movie theaters were within walking distance or a short bus ride from our neighborhood. Each presented different dangers. The theaters themselves were packed with kids on Saturday afternoon, barely kept up in control by a middle-aged woman in white suits called matrons. No one wanted to get thrown out of a theater into the bright street because if you did, you had to make your way home alone, without your friends, through the turf of jealous kids who didn't like having you in their neighborhood. The most dangerous theater was the Ogden, because you had to climb down some boulders in an empty lot to get there, to get home. The lot was the territory of the kids who would later become the Ikes. If they sprung up from behind the rocks and nabbed you, they would torture you until they tired of it. The most dangerous theater on the inside was the Zenith, which had a huge fire axe on the wall. No one thought anything about this object until one afternoon, after we had thoroughly enjoyed watching a Tarzan movie in which Cheetah outsmarted the Nazis, Hammerhead Morgan threw the fire axe at my cousin Herbie. I had seen dozens of children run out onto the stage of Lowe's 167th Street Theater and tear down the curtains after a particularly hilarious Abbott and Costello movie. But somehow Hammerhead Morgan advanced on us one giant step beyond childhood tortures in empty lots. The sound of that big axe as it slapped against the wall and bonged onto the floor at Herbie's feet reverberated in my imagination for many years to come.
Nice.
Even though, that was not our neighborhood, but the same things happened in every neighborhood, to all of the kids.
Yeah, and not just the Bronx.
I wonder, and maybe we've talked about this, we grew up, it seems, in a pretty safe and non-eventful neighborhood. Am I wrong?
You guys mentioned never having seen a zip gun.
No, we knew how to make one, but we never really saw one.
And you didn't
but it
really
was a
try
pretty.
to make one.
Yeah, it was a pretty.
There were no gangs.
Well, there was a gang. there was one gang called the Fordham Baldies.
I was going to say, did you ever run into them?
No, but somehow every once in a while, we'll be playing stickball in the street, and someone would yell, "The bully apples are coming!" And we would drop our stickball stick and leave the ball, and we'd all just spread out like like a big splat.
Really?
You know, and we'd all run into our buildings. And if it sounded really serious, we'd even go into our apartments. If it didn't sound too serious, we would hide behind the stairwells and wait for the all-clear siren, which never sounded, of course. But that was supposedly the big gang. There was the Fordham Baldies, and the other gang was the Bully Apples. The Bully Apples. Now, supposedly the Fordham Baldies was a real gang, but nobody ever saw the Bully Apples either. And I don't know why a gang would call itself the Bully Apples.
The Bully Apples.
Yes, but Rosen has a section in there too about the gangs in his neighborhood that had these strange names. But you know, as gangs go, they weren't really, they're not like today's gangs where they take kids out and kill them.
No. That's why I've heard more about the Fordham Baldies over the years than when I was a kid in the Bronx. I don't.
Yeah. Well, I think they were more than a match for the MS-13 or any of those Salvadoran gangs. The Bully Apples could have formed a pact. The Fordham Baldies and the Bully Apples could have taken on MS-13 and really done a job on them, I'm convinced.
Did you go to, as we talk about the Bronx, most of the Bronx, I must admit, I'm not familiar with. You didn't. It was Jerome. It's where we hung out, and there was Fordham Road. But I don't know if I ever was in the South Bronx or what this guy's talking about. Those theaters, I never heard.
Yeah,
of
those are on the east side. Yeah, no, we didn't go to the east side, but you must have gone over there for work. Remember, you went to get a job as a teenager. You had to have working papers.
Working papers. Wow, I hadn't heard that one in years.
Yeah, and you had to go to the New York City Board of Health, which was a trek and a half into foreign territory, and it was not a very pleasant place to go. You had to get a physical, and then they gave you your working papers. This was, I think, if you were under 16, I forget the age limit, but I think it was 16 or so. If you went to work like as a junior counselor in a day camp or something, you had to have working papers.
A memory that I still have, and it only happened one time, is I don't know why I was on this particular train, but it was an L train. Maybe it was the 3rd Avenue L, and as I looked around, I realized I was the only Caucasian on the train, and it wasn't all black. It was mainly Hispanic people, and nothing happened. It was great, but I realized, so there are other parts of the Bronx. That I'm not used to.
Did you ever participate in that unwritten rule, but it was universal throughout the Bronx, that if you got on the subway, either the L or the I and D, say from Manhattan, and you didn't get a seat because it was crowded, you would stand in front of a black person? Because African Americans always got off at 125th Street.
125th Street? Oh no.
See, so that way you got a seat at 125th Street and took it all the way up to the Bronx.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's...
I mean, talk about sort of reverse...
Diabolical.
Yeah, reverse discrimination or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it worked. It worked. But over the years, and this is true, because as an NYU student, I used to train every day for those 4 years, and this is into the 60s. You saw more and more black people were not getting off at 125th Street. They were going up into the Bronx. It could be a wonderful sociological study of migration via the subway.
You're right.
Somebody should really look into that.
I was lucky. Oh well, you too, David. If I was going downtown, I would get on the D train on 205th Street, so there was always a seat because it was.
Yeah, it was the last stop or the first stop, depending on which way you were going.
Was Bedford Park the first stop on the D train for you?
On the D train, I think it was the second stop. On the IRT, it was the third stop because you had Woodlawn, then you had Marshalltown Parkway, and then you had Bedford Park.
Yeah, well, I didn't go that. I went the D train, and we got off on Bedford.
Right, that's the second stop, or the second to last stop, as you.
Second to last, yeah.
Okay, and you were on the last stop.
On that train, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you remember that wonderful smell when
periodically.
As you got to the top step, and you're heading down into this cool breeze with this strange vapor. It was a wonderful smell. You didn't get that on the IRT because it was all above ground. But there was something about going onto that IND line at 205th Street.
That I don't remember.
Well, you might have had a cold or something,
Actually, I thought you were referring to a different smell on the subway.
I know.
No.
From Stanley. No.
No, there was a good smell. There was a good smell.
Well, the one we're thinking of, everybody who's ever ridden the subways in those days, once in a while, and it surprises you. You go, my God, I can't ever ride this subway again, ever.
Well, maybe between 205th Street and Bedford Park, you had a lot of people with bladder problems. So they did that thing at Bedford Park. It's like there's a train that runs from just outside here down to Florida, the auto train, and for many years it was run as an independent train, and they allowed you to bring your pets on board, and they would stop in the middle of the night in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, for no other reason but to let people take their pets out for a walk and do their business all over the tracks. And I always thought, there must be people in Rocky Mount that are not particularly happy about this nightly occurrence,
Right.
But then Metro took it over, and they don't allow pets on anymore, and they go right through Rocky Mount. But I know what smell you're talking about. West 4th Street had that aroma because you're down there in the village. And a lot of people thought of the entrance to the subway.
And the next stop was 14th Street, and then 23rd Street.
Right, if you're on the local.
Right.
On
the local.
Did you guys ever go to well, you didn't hang, other than to go to school, you didn't hang much in the village.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story about the village. And most people don't know, but at one point, up until the mid-'60s, there was the Women's House of Detention.
Yes.
Remember? Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was about a 10 or 12-story building.
Yep.
Visiting my aunts was a nice experience. Yom Kippur, we'd go up there to visit them.
In the Women's House of Detention?
No.
So there was, and it was like the biggest building right along 6th Avenue there, and as you walk along, they yell, and these women would yell down and whistle at you. Remember?
That's right. That's right.
So
I used to go back and forth because it was nice being whistled at.
Yeah, I know.
I felt really handsome. I went, look at this.
Some of those women had mouths on them like sailors, I must say.
Oh, my God.
But so after graduation, I didn't go back to NYU for a long time, and I came back. I guess it was like somewhere in the early '80s, and we had our friends in from Ohio, and so we went down to the village, and I'm walking along 6th Avenue, And where's the women's house of detention? Where is it? It's gone. It was gone. There was no more women's house of detention. And I wondered what happened. And so I stopped a cop who was walking along, on his beat, I guess, and I asked him, he says, I never heard of it. And I said, wow. That was strange for the cops not to even know. And the reason And David Duchovny, who grew up in the Village, made a very good movie about the women's house of detention. It was called The House of D. That was the premise was he, as a young boy, strikes up a friendship with one of the women in the house of detention. I haven't seen it shown on TV at all, but when I saw that, I said, it did exist. There's proof that it existed.
Yeah, I was going to say, you feel like Twilight Zone. Wait a minute.
Yes, exactly, Mike. Yes, just like the Twilight Zone.
And what happened? How young was this cop? Maybe that he never heard of it.
Right. That's what was surprising to me too. I thought for sure he would have at least known what happened.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Which I certainly remember.
Well,
you're not the only one.
I mean, yeah, I saw this flying saucer. No one else saw it, right?
Yeah, right.
But if you get a chance, find it, House of D. It's really I don't recall whether he actually starred in it, but I know he produced and wrote it, and because it's basically about this young boy's. And I saw him on a show once, and he talked about how that actually had happened, and he, wrote
the House of D, just
D,
the letter
just D. Yep. Yep.
Well, maybe it's on Netflix too,
or on I'm sure on IMDb you could find out.
I just printed it out, but it doesn't show anything. It says the House of Death. The House
really?
Of
No, the House of D? Maybe you have to look in the filmography of David Duchovny.
Right. By the way, congratulations on the Washington Capitals.
Oh, yes. Well, yeah. There is going to be a parade. They haven't had it yet. They're waiting for Trump to come home so they can march past the White House and go, Because especially,
goes there. No team goes to the White House anymore.
No, and there's so many Canadians on that team. They don't want any part of this guy. He just insulted the whole country.
That's right.
He's just insulted all of humanity in 16 months.
Yeah. Well, but I'd love to see that movie. There are some movies that really disappear. They're taken out of circulation, which is very strange.
Yes.
My job is to put you with Lois, my sweetie sister. We're not married, so she's not technically my sister-in-law. Michael, I will put you together, and you would enjoy each other's company. And I would love to see you. We have a place for you to stay when you come up to visit. And,
listen. I'm glad. I almost forgot. Next on Thursday, I'm going to Oregon to visit my son and daughter-in-law.
Oh, cool!
So
what part of Oregon?
They live in Newburgh, which is about 40 minutes from Portland.
Wow!
Oh, wow! Send him my best. I haven't seen Max in a long time. I didn't realize he was living up there.
Oh, yeah, for almost 3 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it Lincoln County that they live?
That doesn't sound familiar, no.
Okay.
How
are you going there? Do you fly there or what? I mean.
I'm flying, yeah. Of course, it's a long drive. And I'm
bad.
I drive 20 minutes and have to pull off to the side to relax. So,
and so do a lot of drivers behind you, actually.
Yes. So I'm flying, and so I won't be around next weekend.
Okay. Yeah. All
All right. Well, good luck and be safe.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, and David, we will talk. I guess it's Tuesday evening on Hal Bach's show.
Yes, and Hal's not going to be there this week, right?
Oh.
Because of the bat mitzvah.
Ah, that's right. So how about if we put that show off another week then?
Well, he did send a script in, but that's okay.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
All right, whatever.
If everybody's up for it, we'll do it Tuesday in his absence. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho, not from the Bronx. Technically, my grandparents, 2981 Valentine Avenue, 256th Street. They're from the Bronx, and I was
close enough.
Close enough. A big part of their lives, and stayed there many, many months. So be well, gentlemen. I love chatting with you.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Listening as an audience, glad you had the opportunity. You learned something.
Goodbye.
Best I can say, enjoy us. Be well, guys.
You too.